It goes without saying that right now we are living through some pretty bizarre royal times. In the last week, for example, Prince William had a Cosmo in an edible seaweed bubble, King Charles was filmed boogieing in a garden with spinning mechanical trees, and Harry has been in court lately fighting what is technically his own father's government. And here's today's strange royal moment. It is time for a real defense of Meghan from one particularly BS allegation that in fact she's never been able to shake off. It's a myth that has unfairly followed her around for years, that she showed up in the UK with all her hugs, all her vegan lattes, and an evil agenda, and she forced Harry to run away from his family. According to this theory, Megxit was orchestrated by one single person, and this is the same person who got her big break on Deal or No Deal. Over the weekend, this assumption got a fresh airing thanks to Paul Burrell. Now, he was the butler for the late Princess Diana, and he showed up on a conservative UK TV station to give his insight into a family that in fact he hasn't dealt with for the better part of 3 decades now. He showed up on GBTV and he said, "Am I the only person in the UK that is thinking, has Harry finally woken up to the truth? Has he finally seen the truth of what his wife is doing and that he's been brainwashed and mesmerized by her beauty or something? Because we all know that, but he doesn't seem to see it." Now that comment about Harry finally waking up to the truth made headlines all over the world. So maybe this nightmare of Megxit is finally coming to an end soon? But see, Burrell's comment is predicated on what would have to be the biggest lie ever about Meghan and Harry. That Harry was just happy as could be as a working royal, and then Meghan walked in and changed everything. So according to this narrative, Meghan just swooped in and used some type of California black magic to lure Harry away from his wonderful life. And Harry was just powerless to resist her. This cable dramedy actress who was 6th on the call sheet was simply so compelling that Harry was tricked into giving up his old life. Well, you know, I am no fan of Meghan Markle, but at the end of the day, this is not how the story goes. It's just a bunch of sexist BS. And don't take my word for it, take Harry's. Over the last 6 months, we have learned a lot more about Harry than we ever wanted to know. Harry, now a proud US resident, has obviously been infected by the tendency to view sharing as a moral virtue. And my goodness, has he ever shared. I mean, he shared through their Netflix docuseries, through his book, and through TV interviews as well. And if there is one thing that was made clear in his book, it is that Harry has been pretty unhappy for a very long time. I mean, he was miserable for decades before Meghan showed up in London to teach Harry about the power of downward dog, and also how to figure out what unconscious bias really is. Now, obviously, Harry felt aggrieved and he felt unsatisfied with much of his life before Meghan entered the picture. For example, the idea of there being an heir and a spare was not only something that the media made up, but instead it was shorthand that actually was used by Harry's own parents, Charles and Diana, as well as his grandparents, the late Queen and Prince Philip. Harry wrote, "I was brought into the world in case something happened to Willie. I was summoned to provide backup, distraction, diversion, and, if necessary, a spare part, kidney perhaps, blood transfusion, the speck of bone marrow. This was all made explicitly clear to me from the start of life's journey and regularly reinforced thereafter." Well, this would be enough to force most of us onto a therapist's sofa. And Harry was also dealing with the intense psychological consequences of losing his mother at such a young age. He had to deal with the complicated relationship with his brother, and his belief that Charles, his father, and Camilla, his stepmother, had approved of these negative press leaks about him. And if that were not enough, all these grievances, all this pain, there was also his arch nemesis, his personal kryptonite, the tabloids. Again, in recent months, we have seen the depths of Harry's hatred towards parts of Fleet Street, thanks to the fact that right now he is fighting more court cases against them than Prince Andrew has friends. Earlier this month, he wrote a witness statement, and in this statement, he blamed press intrusion for former girlfriend Chelsea Davy deciding that she didn't want to be with him anymore. Well, there's a lot going on. His family treating him like a walking donor, the evil press ruining his romantic life. I mean, and then he had to leave the only career he ever really loved. And let's consider the fact that he was feeling spurned by William and Catherine because they were not inviting him over to enjoy supper in their kitchen anymore. And we've got the picture of a man who was disenchanted with a lot of his life. And we cannot blame Meghan for all of this. This was actually all before Meghan. So when Harry and Meghan met on that fateful day back in 2016, he was not some happy person who had found a lot of satisfaction in his career. Instead, the guy Meghan met that evening was somebody who was already disillusioned with his prescribed path. So no, Meghan didn't trick him into getting away from Buckingham Palace and his Windsor relatives. Harry didn't leave just because of the sweet nothings that Meghan was whispering into his ear. Now, that prevailing narrative or belief is misogynistic, but it's also incorrect. Just ask Harry, he has said so himself. Now, that's not to say that we've got to agree with all of Harry's choices, or think that he made them freely and willingly. I can't help but wonder, though, at the resistance from people like Burrell in terms of accepting that Meghan actually might not be the puppet master behind Megxit lies in the fact that doing that requires us to also think again about how we the public have viewed and treated Harry throughout his life. It's not comfortable to look back and see that this happy guy persona was an artificial one that was created by a man who in fact was feeling pretty hurt and lost for most of his life. It's a lot easier, actually, to buy into this theory that Meghan was the manipulator, and the reductive idea, too, that Harry was happy all along. It's a lot better to do that than to have to face the disturbing truth that maybe Harry has always been a deeply wounded person. And it's pretty depressing to note that we're not that far off the 500th anniversary of Henry VIII's marriage to Anne Boleyn. It was poor Anne and her foreign ways who was blamed for his decision to throw out the Catholic Church and switch over to a more Protestant belief system. It was she who was blamed and demonized. It was Anne Boleyn who people used to call a naughty, goggle-eyed whore and she-devil. Both of these men share a name, Henry, and almost 5 centuries apart, they made grown-up choices about who they wanted to be and who they wanted to be with. Both men had total agency when they made monarchy-shaking decisions, and both of them deserve to bear the responsibility for all the problems they caused. And you, do you agree with this view? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. If you think my video is useful, don't be afraid to like and share it with anyone else who would enjoy it.